Hey all, coming at you with the review of One Piece episode 952. So to start off, we see Kandro saying goodbye to the citizens of Ebisu before leaving with Yasui's body to give him a proper burial. And yeah, I'm gonna go into a lot of kind of like spoilerish kind of stuff, like or just allusions to spoilers here. So I'm just gonna say, all right, everything he pretty much just pretty much said to those citizens in some way, he wasn't lying about all of it, but he was also kind of lying through his fucking teeth about a lot of what he just said to them. Like it was his own like brand of reassurance, really. But on top of that, th- this whole scene in the beginning, on top of this, the whole scene being like an anime only moment, I like how it does still give a little more closure just still gives a little more closure to Yasui's overall role in the story compared to the manga, which, if I remember correct, if from my experience of reading the manga, I feel it did just kind of. I feel the manga did just kind of move on after his death, but adding this small moment that does give his death and sacrifice that extra little bit of respect before completely switching gears back to the rebellion. So, well, maybe not a necessary scene, it was a nice addition just to kind of get just kind of wrap a little bit of a bow on Prince Yasui's overall contribution to the story of Wano up to this point, which again is something I don't think the manga ever really kind of gave him. It was just his death and that was it. Um, in fact, with that being said, this episode again reinforces the consequences of the Straw Hats' actions by showing us the wanted posters being broadcasted across Wano. And the interesting thing about this is there's a bit of a pattern you'll notice that I didn't even consider until recently, which is in all the times that wanted posters have been advertised to the citizen, the wanted posters of the Straw Hats and Lost Crew and all of them have been advertised to the citizens of Wano. The one who always seems conspicuously missing from these lineups is Kanjuro. And while that's not total proof, it does cast a little more suspicion onto him, with this being more than once that the Straw Hats and allies have been broadcast to Wano as criminals to the pub been broadcast as criminals to the public of Wano without acknowledgement of his involvement. And I I absolutely love how the Straw Hats' horrifyingly disgusted reaction faces had to basically come back into play as a means for Usopp, Brook, and Robin to get past the guard and escape with Toko, which is not only creative in itself, but making use of the fact that Brook is essentially the Walking Dead is another genius way of incorporating him into the plans like this to make and at the same time making use of the knowledge of Wano's culture, like the way that Brook is utilized in as a sort of the way Brook is utilized in this arc as a sort of by incorporating a lot of Wano's culture about the dead and into it really is kind of a brilliant way of doing that. Um, honestly, honestly, this episode was so dense with reveals and setups that the reunion between Kaido and Big Mom that happened at the end was in some ways kind of overshadowed by everything else. But having said that, there is still a lot to glean from it. The first being that Big Mom mentions offhand that Whole Cake Island has all but three species inhabiting it, and we definitely know that one of them is giants. But the other she mentions in this episode is that King is supposedly one of these species that she's missing, which in itself just begs the question of what the hell is King? Because just getting a closer look at the few things that stand out about his appearance, I'd almost venture to guess that King is some kind of fire being, or some kind of like or from some kind of like from fire animal. Like if you look at his hair, it looks like fire pretty much. So at this point he it almost thinks like he's some kind of being like made of fire, or some kind of being that where some kind of species that kind of thrives on fire or something like that. That's the only thing I can think of. But that also just adds another question of if he's a race of like fire beings or something, what basically pushed them to extinction? That's another question. The second thing to talk about is how we learn offhand from one of Kaido's underlings that Kaido and Big Mom were at one point in time a part of the same crew. And the only thing I'll say about that is buckle up, anime only watchers, you're in for an insane ride. I'm talking mega death defying roller coaster kind of experience. That's the kind of shit you're headed for just from this one little reveal of them being a part of the same crew. Also, art and animation was mostly fine this week, but that big clash between Kaido and Big Mom, for as short as it was also a masterpiece of art and animation coming together in one beautiful display. Like, that was absolutely beautiful. Like, I loved it. Again, it was a very short clash, but in that very short clash, art and animation was perfect. Like, I very rarely say that an art and anime sequence in One Piece is perfect, but to me, that brief fight, that brief clash between Kaido and Big Mom, yeah, that was perfect to me. I'm sure there are people who are going to disagree with me, but that was a perfect blend of art and animation. That was a perfect use of art and animation, honestly, and it's one of the very rare, like, most. Usually at best in modern One Piece it gets to the great category, but it never gets to the perfect category. But this is one of those rare times where to me it was perfect. Um, Great or amazing, I guess, but yeah, it never gets to perfect for me. And yeah, the episode also shows Asha introducing the means by which the rebellion will be traveling to we'll pretty much be traveling. We'll be traveling on Prince Road to basically Onigashima, and yeah, this is one of those things that is a giant step forward in the goal of defeating Kaido, but at the same time, it also going to serve as the biggest roadblock for our heroes thus far, as far as hard as it is to believe, because these the pretty much reveal of these simple ships that are going to carry them to Onigashima are the first major turning point for everything to start going completely off the rails in the most emotionally turbulent way possible. And again, just like the wanted posters, it's amazing how many things I didn't realize how many things were being hinted at. And how many things are going to go the complete opposite of how I thought it would go with that. With the one thing I can say though is that among everything that's going to go wrong, there is one single spark of hope lying wait among the shadows. Now, one thing I was not expecting to see, but also a nice addition, I think is, correct me if I'm wrong, but we basically get to see in this episode how much Luffy has mastered, well, pretty much Row, and his continued training with Yogoro, because. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was probably an anime only edition because I don't remember seeing that in the manga. And this is one of those editions that you could kind of make an argument. There is an argument to be made that it ruins the surprise for later on in the arc. But I do like how it still does provide context for just how far along Luffy is with his training and mastery of pretty much Row with Haki. Like, it's a small scene, but it provides a good insight into Luffy's level right now, and just kind of a precursor of what we can probably expect when Luffy and Kaido finally face off. With that said, the episode also shows Zoro making another attempt at getting Shusui back, but also with the intent of actually trying to learn, this time of actually trying to learn its connection to Wano and just how important it actually is to the people of the country, which just from him kind of confronting the bandit and just kind of having this conversation with him, it shows a side of Zoro I think we tend to often overlook, which is just how perceptive he is, and at the very least willing to try to understand the circumstances of something, even if he won't, even if he won't necessarily like pretty much give up on trying to reclaim what was taken from him. Which, yeah, on that note, if it isn't obvious up to this point, Zoro's not getting Shusui back. He's going to be forced to leave it here on Wano. But on the other hand, he's also going to end up getting a replacement sword for it. But let's just say, looking at this, revisiting this material makes me realize the sword he's going to replace it with, I don't think is the sword he's going to keep either. Like looking back on a lot of the earlier parts of this arc, kind of makes me realize that we've pretty much already saw very early on in the arc of the sword that Zoro is probably going to is going to get as a permanent replacement. Honestly, on that note, Kawamatsu also with the whole fight between Zoro and the bandit, Kawamatsu also throws himself into the fray, and from that we see that the bandit recognizes Kawamatsu, which the only thing I'll say there is that it's its own brand of emotional torment. Like you will feel sorry. Like it is going to, it is you will basically feel you'll feel sorry for you will get emotional over an animal. Let's put it that way. But yeah, guys, that's all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and that's your Crunchyroll. Dead Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, guys.